Yesterday afternoon, the St. Louis Police Department joined in solidarity with protesters because they know that they need the public and that the public needs them. Our officers are husbands, wives, sons, daughters, moms, and dads. They are frustrated when fellow officers tarnish their badge. They care about our community. Yesterday evening and throughout the early morning, many of the same protesters that our officers protected turned violent against them, throwing objects at them, using fireworks against them, and even shooting 4 of them. Our injured officers were rushed to the hospital by fellow officers. After being assured that their colleagues would survive their injuries, they returned to the police protest line, not agitated, not angry, or even revengeful, rather calm and professional. Most of us could not have done that. I'm especially proud of the way the men and women of our police department have gone about their work in the city of St. Louis. Last night, over 200 people engaged in persistent criminal activity from 9 p.m. till about 5 a.m. this morning. They burglarized businesses, damaged property, looted, and committed murder. My prayers are for the family and friends of retired Captain David Dorn, who was murdered last night by a looter. We requested the assistance of the FBI SWAT unit, the FBI surveillance airplane, the National Guard, the ATF, the Missouri Highway Patrol, and the St. Louis County SWAT team. All arrived within 30 minutes of our request. I am grateful for their assistance. They helped to patrol the city until early this morning, and they will continue to do so until further notice. To the criminals that inflicted crime on our city last night, we have your surveillance pictures, and I will use every tool available to me to count every freckle on your face until you have been identified and arrested. And I trust that our circuit attorney and that our judges will do their jobs to the fullest extent of the law. To our businesses, we will do everything we can to protect your property. To our citizens, please separate yourselves from people that hide among you in the name of protesting in the daylight, just to do harm to you in the cover or darkness. To our officers, I got your backs. And I truly believe that the majority of the citizens in the St. Louis area and its region have your backs. I'm not happy today. Justice will be done. Chief Hayden.
As you all know, we had 4 officers that were shot last night. I'm very grateful to report that all of them have been released from the hospital since. Our officers exhibited extraordinary restraint under some extremely difficult circumstances, extremely adverse, none of which we've seen in law enforcement in our lifetime. I've been on 33 and a half years, and so never have I seen anything like that, nor has anybody else around here. Throughout the night, we made 25 arrests for various charges, and then there were 55 businesses and counting that were either burglarized or had property damage. One of those businesses had one of our retired captains, retired Captain David Dorn, who had retired after 38 years during a looting process. David Dorn was exercising law enforcement training that he learned here, and so in his honor, we are wearing our morning bands. Our officers did an extraordinary job under nearly impossible circumstances. I honor our officers. We're there for them. We would hope that you all would pray for them as well as we go through this crisis. Thank you.
Chief Dickerson.
Good morning. I'm sure everybody has seen the pictures and the videos of last night. The St. Louis Fire Department was very busy. I want to commend the firefighters, the EMS workers, the dispatchers at work last night controlling this situation. Approximately half a dozen buildings in downtown were set fire, multiple dumpsters, vehicle fires. It was a very busy night, but I do want to commend all the members of the St. Louis Fire Department and EMS for doing a fantastic job, and also the St. Louis Police Department for protecting us, because they were very busy also.
Ms. Gardner.
Good morning, everybody. First, my heart goes out to the wife, the family, and loved ones of former St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Captain and retired Moline Acres Chief, Police Chief David Dorn, who was tragically killed last night while responding to an alarm at Lee's Pawn Shop. We hope for the speedy recovery for the 4 other officers who were injured last night. Yesterday was filled with peaceful protests in the city, throughout St. Louis region, and around the country to speak out against the tragic death of Mr. George Floyd. As an African-American woman, I understand and share the deep frustrations and anger about the inequities of the criminal justice system. It's why I first ran as circuit attorney and why I will continue to do everything in my power to create a fair and more equitable criminal justice system. I fully support and strongly believe in the power of nonviolent protests and shine a light on the systemic racism and discriminatory practices that are in our criminal justice system. But what happened last night was not about nonviolent protest. What happened last night were a small group of individuals who chose to benefit off the pain and suffering of our community and use it as an excuse to cause insensible, undamageable harm to our communities and to engage in senseless violence. But I will continue to uphold the right to peaceful protests, but I want to be clear. I will use the full power of the law and my officer to prosecute and hold accountable anyone who murders police officers, who shoot at police officers, or harm anyone in my community. These people who committed the heinous acts are not interested in finding solutions to the intractable racism that is at the heart of these protests. They are using this opportunity to cause chaos. So to everyone, understand that you will be held responsible for the senseless acts of violence. But to the peaceful protesters out there doing the right things for the right reasons, continue to make your voice heard and to help us root out those whose actions work directly against justice for all.
Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Hayden. Thank you, Chief Jenkerson. Thank you, Judge Edwards, Alderman Jeffrey Boyd, Alderwoman Tamika Hubbard, Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, all of you who are here today. Last night was a terrible night for St. Louis. What started as a very nonviolent and peaceful demonstration and protest ended in looting, shooting, burning, and attacks on law enforcement. This cannot be and will not be tolerated. You have heard from Chief Hayden, Chief Jenkerson, whose men and women were on the front lines of this, I won't call it a protest. They were on the front lines of this riot that we had last night in St. Louis. There were hundreds of cars going from location to location to do harm, to set fire, to loot, and to burn things. Thank you to the men and women of the St. Louis Police Department and, of course, of the St. Louis Fire Department. Most of us could not do and would not do their jobs. Thank you to them. So in light of what you have heard from Judge Edwards, Chief Jenkerson, Chief Hayden, Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, I'm announcing this morning a 9 p.m. curfew beginning tonight. 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. Everybody needs to be off the streets. You need to be at home. This is certainly an inconvenience for all of our residents. I apologize for that because the actions of a few, the actions of probably a few hundred individuals, some of whom may not even be from our community, are causing this curfew. But we have to give law enforcement and our fire department the tools that they need to try to keep us safe and try to protect property. And this curfew is a means to that end. There are a few exceptions to the curfew, people going to and from work, people in state, local, and federal governments doing their jobs, people going back and forth to the hospital. So there are a few exceptions, but otherwise, it is necessary for us to have a 9 p.m. curfew beginning tonight. We honor the men and women of the police department and the fire department and those that were shot last night, the 4 officers shot last night. We honor George Floyd. We honor Captain Darian, who was killed last night, by taking this action and implementing this curfew. This is something very necessary for our city. It is happening, as you all know, across the nation, frankly, around the country, but definitely across the nation. And we will have to join those other cities in implementing a curfew for at least the next few days. We will let you know when that curfew is lifted again. At this point, we will all be happy to take questions.
I just wondered, for the protesters or the rioters who want to go out and repeat last night, how does it work legally with this curfew? If they step foot on the street after 9 o'clock, what could happen to them legally?
If they don't fall into one of the exceptions, if they are a protester, they are subject to arrest.
Do you have any intelligence, or are you guys hearing anything about what might be in store for tonight? What are we concerned about moving forward?
Chief, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, we gather intelligence constantly, and so our real-time crime center is, as we speak, gathering additional intelligence.
Can you explain the role of the National Guard moving forward? We just heard that they were contacted last night and they responded within 30 minutes of being contacted. They're actively patrolling the streets right now, and what will we see tonight?
What their role will be is that they help us to secure properties.
And they're doing that right now?
They will do that upon our request.
And Chief, you talk about the protests and all the businesses looted. You haven't just seen it here in St. Louis or Ferguson. You've seen it across the country. A lot of people are asking about, why people haven't been arrested. Is that because the officers are so focused on handling the protests and there just isn't enough resources to get out there and arrest those people, or how does that?
Well, let's take what happened last night, for example. So there's so many businesses, it's impossible to protect them all at the same time. So what we do is try to protect ourselves as we try to protect businesses, but it is very difficult when you got 300 people running around all over the place.
Chief, did you mention there were 25 arrests last night?
I did mention that there were 25 arrests last night and that there were 55 businesses and counting that were affected.
Were any of the arrests for the people who shot the 4 officers? Do we know that at this point?
So right now, we have not taken anybody in custody for the shooting.
Were those that were arrested from the city of St. Louis or outside the area?
Yeah, we'll have to get a follow-up. We'll have our media folks to follow up with that question as far as where were people from and that type of thing.
But Chief, when you talk about 200 people that were kind of traveling from area to area, do you get a sense that they are in any way organized or that they have some kind of plan on what they're going to carry out?
I think I would have to acknowledge that they were at least planned in some way, to at least loosely.
And how do they go about doing that? Is that
Probably various ways. They may be texting one another, they may be talking on the phone, they may be using social media.
Chief, while you're up there, could you please talk about Dave Dorn? You know, we hear about people who are murdered all the time, but when it hits the force, it brings it more to the limelight,
Sure.
rightly so or wrongly so. Can you please talk about him and his legacy?
Surely. So David Dorn was a fine captain. Many of us younger officers looked up to him. He retired probably in 2004 or so, but very well liked, very pleasant, and his wife still works here. And so, very sad time for our agency. We will honor him.
Chief, can you talk about the plan going into last night? I mean, there has been some criticism of the department in the past for maybe being too aggressive. Was it sort of a defensive posture last night? And looking back on it now, would you do anything differently?
Well, I think we will, learning from the protests that we've had in the past, I think we've implemented the best plan that we can. And of course, the mayor's curfew that she's instituted will help us be more on the offensive as opposed to just defending things.
So, Chief, how will people be arrested tonight to avoid any sort of backlash as we had when they were arrested in September of 2017 after the Stockley protests, and they turned around and sued the city? What's the marching order for the troops to arrest them, in what manner?
Sure. So the marching orders are a little different now because at the time during the Stockley protests, a lot of that was passive resistance, sitting in the middle of the streets and those type of things. Hey, last night everybody in this group was very actively in coordination, coming down there to steal and to pillage. And so I think they're easily distinguishable. They're not peaceful protesters. They didn't come down there to be peaceful, and they will be easily identifiable.
And how will they be arrested?
They'll be taken into custody by our arrest teams.
And last question for me, this may be for Circuit Attorney Gardner too. How long will anyone who's arrested for curfew violations be taken off the stage, so to speak? Will they be held for a certain amount of time where they can't go out and repeat it the next night, or what's the plan for holding these people?
Well, under the law, they have certain. Under the laws, depending on what they're arrested for, that determines how they'll be held. We have right now, under our laws, you're held for 24 hours before you have to have charges issued. And if no charges are issued, those individuals will be released under the laws of the state of Missouri. So depending on if a charge is brought within the 24 hours, determines when they will be held or not.
We've got time for a couple more, guys. Chief Jenkerson, can I ask you a question, please? Can you let us know if there was any truth, just rumors that we had heard, that protesters, looters, rioters got in the way of firefighters last night, trying to put out 80 fires, not just the 7-Eleven?
The first time we were blocked was on the response to the 7-Eleven fire, where we were blocked by protesters, we were blocked by dumpsters, trash cans, things thrown. We were also hit with rocks and bricks trying to proceed into that fire. There was other fires that we were called to that we could not get into because of the traffic on the street, and we had to wait until that traffic was cleared. So I would say on most of our responses, we were delayed because of the protesters and because of other things that were thrown in the street, yes.
All right, two more. Hey, Chief, can you, I know you can't talk about the hometowns or at this point of the people who were arrested. Can you characterize them in any way? I mean, you know.
Sure. What I can characterize is that they were very proud and celebrative about what they were doing. That's what I can tell you. And that was consistent. And that's why I was explaining earlier that they're easily distinguishable because they're out there clapping and cheering each other on as they damage property, break into buildings, and in unfortunate case, shoot at police officers.
And last question, Chief. You know, seeing the peaceful protests over in Ferguson, you saw a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. Last night, I saw some of the protesters that turned into rioters, and it seemed that they were very young. Can you speak to that?
I think that that's consistent. I think we would agree that most of them appeared to be late teens, early 20s.
Chief, was part of the tactic yesterday to protect the police department? Obviously, we've seen other police departments go down. And was that then, do you think, did it delay the response to other parts of the city? When were the extra resources called in?
Well, they were called in shortly after we realized that we couldn't handle it ourselves. And so obviously we were attempting to protect the department as best we can, but we also attempted to protect businesses and other property. And so again, when everybody is doing this activity at the same time, very difficult for us to set up lines, very difficult to protect ourselves while at the same time protecting property.
Would you say you were, I guess, caught off guard or surprised by how violent it got last night?
Well, I think we were certainly caught off guard by the length of time that it took to try to get it under control.
And Chief, I know there are no arrests currently for the 4 officers that were shot or the retired officer that was killed, but do you have suspects at this point? Are you actively working?
Well, we're certainly absolutely actively working on identifying suspects, and so I'll leave that at that.
All right, thanks,
So
guys,
guys,
appreciate
Jacob,
it.
before we leave, the U.S. Attorney is not present, cannot be present, so we have a representative of the United States Attorney's Office who's a prosecutor on most of the cases that we send over to the federal court. Rodney.
Good morning. My name is Rodney Holmes. I'm the Violent Crime Chief at the U.S. Attorney's Office. What we are doing is we are on call. We are actively screening all of the arrests that are made. If we have federal jurisdiction on any of these cases with a number of the rioting statutes and other tools at our disposal, we are moving forward and we are filing criminal complaints and possibly indictments at a later date. So we are screening all of the arrests. When we have jurisdiction, we will file charges, and we are here to assist law enforcement in any way possible.
Has the U.S. Attorney's Office been instructed by the President at all to take a very aggressive stance on arrests and prosecutions?
Not that I'm aware of. We are, of course, this is a priority, but I have not received any specific instructions to do anything above and beyond the normal. And the way the system is, our office is divided up, I'm responsible for triaging any of the violent crimes in normal circumstances, the carjackings, the business robberies, and so forth. But the violence that occurs in the protest falls on my area. So I am city, county, I'm looking at everything, and if we have jurisdiction, we're moving forward. I'm not doing anything that we wouldn't normally do. We have plenty of attorneys to handle these cases, and we are moving forward, and we're working hand in hand with St. Louis City Police, the county, various county police departments, FBI, ATF, and DEA, so forth.
Thanks, guys, appreciate you coming.